Oh, hey, buddy, it's your old pal Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. This week I wanted to discuss something, and no, it's not me hating on Primaris. It's just the fact that I think it's undeniable that the Primaris overhaul of Space Marines have completely changed the face of Warhammer 40k forever, and it also really changed the tone. Is that for good or bad? Let's dive into it. So many of you actually started 40k after 8th edition, where the Primaris were originally introduced. So for you, a Space Marine Primaris guy is the same as a Space Marine Firstborn guy, right? Well, for many of us, like myself, it really isn't, though. And if you look at any of the older books, like anything prior to 8th edition, there was a completely different vibe to the game. And what I mean by that is Space Marines are undeniably the poster boy of 40k. And when you change the look and the vibe of Space Marines, you're going to change the entire game. So we originally went from things like this. They're over the top. It's a lot of people have said 40k is satirical, and it truly is. And of course, it's honing in on that vibe of the 80s and the 90s where everything was extreme, right? And that's really fun. It's got a lot of character to it. It's got a lot of interest to it, where these people are so zealous that they don't have families and they don't, care about themselves at all, and they're completely devoted to their cause, and they're over the top, and if there's, one Xenos on that planet, we just orbital bombard the whole thing. Like, it's obviously British satire. If you read Judge Dredd is very much in the 40k vibe, extremely, and they're both British IPs. In the 90s and 2000s, and especially in the 2010s, the culture of the world started to shift, and a lot of people didn't have any nostalgia for that super hardcore 80s metal sort of thing anymore. And of course, many people do now, but the 30-year mark has passed sort of thing. That's usually takes about 30 years for someone to start looking back and reflecting and appreciating what came before. And so there did seem like there was a change that needed to happen. And of course, Games Workshop is like, well, we need to make these guys bigger because they're looking a little derpy, right? How do we replace the number one selling kit of all time? I mean, the Space Marine line would often, and I'm sure it still does, outsell all other armies. Like you pick dwarves and you pick Space Marines, and one box of Space Marines, let's say Attack Squad, will outsell the entire army of dwarves that month. I really don't think it can be overstated how much of a fantastic success the typical tactical Marine was. So you really can't just repackage it with them bigger. You really can't in a creative sense, because it's like, well, why are these guys taller? These guys aren't. So I think they actually did the right thing in making it a narrative reason. Oh, we're doing something different, right? We're creating a new crop of Space Marines. So honestly, I don't have a problem with that. I know a lot of the older players they just hate Primaris. Primaris is the worst thing that ever happened. And that is very arguable. I'll get into several of the things in this video, but I think Primaris being a brand new type of Space Marine and being able to update the entire line and sell new miniatures, that was both logical, reasonable, and probably necessary, in my opinion. When Primaris first came out, I was on board with them. And I actually still like Primaris to this day. I don't have any Primaris armies, but I still like the look of them. They did definitely modernize the miniatures to make them look tactical, as a lot of people say. So it's tactical and cool and futuristic and a much more modern look. There's a lot of like smooth plate armor, and their guns look more like guns. They look a little less cartoony than they used to, and things like that. They've just updated the whole motif of it. But the problem with that is, if I show you an old Dreadnought right here, this old Dreadnought has attitude. It's kind of wonky, right? It's strangely proportioned. It's interesting. It's lovable, right? It's like how do you get into a game that has goofy graphics? Well, you can still get into the game. Like matter of fact, the goofy graphics are often what last longer and are less dated than, the modern graphics for the time. Go look at the original Final Fantasy VII. Was like mind-blowing at the moment when it came out. But then it's really isn't now, and that's why they have to remaster it and whatnot. But if you look at this Dreadnought, it's It's clunky, it's stompy, it looks like it's out of a game. It doesn't look realistic, right? But that's what's interesting about it. Now, if you look at the new dreadnoughts, I still think they look pretty cool, but there's something missing. You know, the proportions are more human, in my opinion. They don't so obviously have the sarcophagus on the front of them, right? They slightly do, but the old one had the giant sarcophagus. There is a half dead dude inside here, you know, and even like interring your injured into a sarcophagus and making him go fight again, like that's all really hardcore, right? It's just a shame, in my opinion, that there was something lost slightly in translation. Yes, these new miniatures will have like the little rosary things. They'll have the little, oh, it's a bone in a box and that sort of stuff. They try to keep the old type of look, but if you look at Battlefleet Gothic ships, right, they are super archaic, super like cathedrals in space. And then you look at the new Space Marines, and they look modern. They don't look old. They don't look gothic. They don't look any of that, you know? And the old ones did, though. If you saw a Space Marine or a chaplain or something walking through the halls of one of those giant star cruisers and these giant halls like a cathedral, he looked like he belonged there. Because the ship is so over the top, and he's so over the top, that it's almost like an inside joke between GW and the players, like, isn't this crazy? Like, this is just mad, right? These ships are gigantic. These people are gigantic. These people are insane. Isn't this funny, right? And that, I think that was a lot of the charm of the old version of Warhammer. Unfortunately, I think Games Workshop tried to make it a little too serious. A little too, hey, take this seriously. And to be honest with you, it may have had a more mass appeal because Warhammer's bigger than ever. So maybe 40K, it was actually a success to introduce Primaris because not only did they get to resell everything again, right? Your jump troops, your bikers, your heavy weapon squads, everything you get to sell again because it's Primaris now. Even your land raiders and things have variants because you can sell it as Primaris. I also think the joke of the satirical nature was lost on some people, and because certainly not everybody gets satire. I used to write satire, and there was a good portion of people that don't understand satire. So to me, I'm thinking you're making a broader appeal. You can resell all of your stuff. You're updating and facelifting. I still don't have a problem with Primaris. It just feels to me like it's a little too clean. It's a little too smooth. It's a little too modern. And it's not grimdark enough. Now, I don't necessarily know how they would do that. To be honest with you, I think maybe they would keep the old styles and just make them bigger, make them slightly different or whatever. But even if you look at the old helmets of Space Marines, they looked angry, like the whole Angry Marine meme. They just look angry, like they're going, right? And you look at the new Space Marine helmet and you're like, well, that looks like a helmet. That looks like something possibly the military today would wear in some sort of circumstance, right? It's just not, it doesn't have the same soul, in my opinion. And again, I'm not hating on Primaris. I actually like Primaris, and I've got nothing against it, really. But I think we're seeing the game go away from being campy and goofy and way over the top and satirical, and now we're seeing it more, modern first-person shooter sort of style where, oh, look, this is cool. It's not all those other things that are more subtle and harder to define. Now it's just cool. It's modern. It's cool. It's sleek. And, like I said, apparently it worked, but I kind of miss the old ways. When I look at two different dreadnoughts, and you tell me which one looks cooler. Probably the older players will say the original Dreadnought looks cooler, and I agree, because it has more attitude to it. The new one looks like a piece of hardware. It looks like something modern, and it's not particularly interesting. Especially with Games Workshop's recent lean into the tournament scene. Tournament players typically want to take things seriously. They don't want campy or goofy. So, ultimately, I think it was the right choice. I just wish there was a way to preserve the feeling of Warhammer instead of modernizing it and kind of, boiling it down to, yeah, it's war. Okay. It's just, it doesn't have the same bite. It doesn't have the same flavor to it, in my opinion. So, you let me know. Do you prefer campy, goofy, old miniatures? Or do you prefer the modern, sleek, no nonsense, arguably no character miniatures. There's really no wrong answer to this because I truly do like both of them. And in this point of the show, I'd love to point out a couple neat factors about my beautiful, sexy, good-smelling Patreon patrons. Because we're a very tight-knit group, you see, and we know a lot about each other. Did you know Hero only eats meat out of an ice cream cone? Did you know that? It's true. Mike doesn't have a waterbed anymore. He filled his waterbed full of Jell-O, and he said it's actually pretty jiggly. Grendel owns a string of franchised saucy puppet shows, which is... that's something, isn't it? Beef Supreme ran for mayor in his local town, but there was no elections scheduled, so he ended up just kind of littering with his signage. Kevin says he saves a fortune every year on not buying toilet paper. He goes to the free newspapers at the gas station, and that's what he uses. Jordan Johnson said that if he could live in any one fictional setting, it would be Futurama. And honestly, I don't think I disagree with him. Pain and Suffering assures me that the recent fender bender he had was truly with a Sasquatch. Fraudfishy claims he's never been to the moon. That's probably true. Saul is actually a badass time-traveling cyborg cop, which is pretty cool, I guess. Nate just won the championship belt for ostrich riding. Pretty cool. The Peppers are currently trying to figure out just how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop. Good luck, guys. Unfortunately, Kenneth is in space jail at the moment, so he couldn't respond to me. Davich secretly told me that he was the Sasquatch that hit Pain and Suffering, so don't tell Pain and Suffering. Brendan, meanwhile, works in the adult film industry as a secretary. So, not really in the industry, but kind of in the industry. Mitch is deathly afraid of robots, so keep him and Saul away. I will see you guys next week.